Kimmy Moss, welcome to the weMove podcast.
This is so official with these microphones. Thank you.
Terribly British, right? So we met you last year at Carl Paoli's Insider. Carl being the first person that we ever met for weMove, and then he brought together a collection of people.
I'm gonna bring back the joke that I made on Carl Paoli when we were at the School of Calisthenics.
Yeah.
That Carl. Do you know the Kevin Bacon 5 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon?
No.
Oh, it's not gonna
With
work
Carl?
Carl is like the Kevin Bacon of the movement world. He like connects everyone.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I know the like 6 degrees of separation, right? I'm familiar with the phenomenon. Yeah.
Well, it's like Carl. Everyone knows Carl, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we connected.
Logan.
And that's how we connected with Logan as well.
Logan.
Yeah. That's how we connected with many people.
Sorry, I had to name drop you on this one. Made that tally. The other day I was like, Logan, I don't think I've been on a podcast yet. And I haven't like referenced you at some point. Yeah. Yeah.
Us too.
Yeah, we try and get Logan and Carl in on every podcast.
Cool. Within
It's
the
not
first
really-
2 minutes, check. We're good. Okay.
It's not really the weMove podcast. Logan just hasn't listened to all the other episodes.
Yeah.
It's Logan Appreciation Podcast.
Yeah. You're welcome.
For
Yeah, but
those
it's
not
cool.
Here, Logan's just through the other room.
Yeah. By the way.
And we're in his house.
And we're in his house. So we met you at Carl's Insider,
Yeah.
and there's a lot going on. We've just been in the ice baths. Well, not with you, because you actually didn't go in, but you were taking
I did
us
not.
through some...
I did go in last night. I actually tried. Well, we don't have to talk about it, but yeah, I was like addicted to the ice at one point. So I try to practice like not every day. I'm not gonna ice every day. I would love to.
How'd you find that? Do you walk past like someone's ice drink and
I smell ice and I swear to
God
my eyes dilate. My pupils dilate.
Was it like that from the very first time you got? Was there
It
an
was
instant
love
connection?
at first sight.
Ice.
No, I've always liked the ice, but it wasn't until a couple ice baths and I was like,
Were you doing it when you say you've always liked ice? Were you doing it when you were playing football?
yeah. Well, in college we would have in the training room there were like these whirlpools though, and so most people would just go in like stand in with their legs in, or you would kneel in and go like belly button down, but never like neck down, like
Right.
XPT style or whatever we do now. And I just remember they're like, hey, it shouldn't be colder than about 50 degrees. And I would, even then, I was adding extra ice. And I would see the thermometer go down. Be, it went down to 42, but like, yeah. I didn't know anything of what, other than, I think this is good for recovery. Subjectively, I feel good later. Yeah.
Right.
So your background was
Close loop.
soccer, aka football, or
Yeah.
really known as football.
It sounds nicer when you say football.
Yeah. It's because of
Football,
what it's
yeah.
called.
Yeah. It was soccer here. Yeah, that was my life. It's still weird to me sometimes. I wouldn't think of it unless we bring it up in conversation that, I'm 30 years old. 25 of those years, 27 of those years was like, hey, what's your name? What do you do? And soccer was in that first sentence.
How did you get into football? It's very different in the UK. The women's games only really kind of, let me rephrase that. Public awareness and accessibility of the women's games is kind of grown over the past several years versus the American game, or at least my perception coming from a football background. It's almost like stronger. There's almost more of an awareness of the women's game than there is the men's game.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
From abroad looking into America.
And that, I would say that's accurate.
Right.
Yeah, I think I was 4 or 5 years old. First game.
Wow. So 25 years ago then.
Yeah. Scored 4 goals. Like,
Yeah.
I just knew.
Yeah.
And it's something more of like, it was a function of my parents put me in sports, like, physical, active kid. I played t-ball. I did basketball. I mean, at one point I was like, maybe I'll play college basketball. I'm not even kidding. Like, whatever the sport was, it didn't matter. Soccer was the best vehicle to, capture what I love to do, just like compete, playing games, and the physical component, So I knew really from like a young age. I remember it was team after team, and we're talking 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, like all stars and all this. And then all of a sudden travel soccer comes in, club soccer comes into the conversation as early as that starts at like 8. And from then on, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be the next Mia Hamm. I'm going to go play Division I college soccer. I did do that. I didn't play on the Olympic team. I didn't go on and play professionally.
Right.
Played semi-professionally, but got into coaching sooner than I thought I would.
Right.
And
do you want to hear a crazy stat about English women's football? In the 1950s, 50,000 people turned up for the Women's FA Cup final. The following year, the FA shut down women's football and said that women shouldn't be playing football.
In 1950?
In 1952.
Wow.
Yeah. 50,000 people turned up for the...
Why was that?
It was that popular. It just was that popular. 50,000 people turned up to watch the women's FA Cup final. And then the men...
Let us play soccer. Yeah.
Yeah, let us play soccer, yeah.
It's wow.
Nuts. Absolutely nuts. That the damage that was done by
How big's Wembley?
Well, back in the day, Wembley would have...
now?
Oh, I think now... you know what? I have no idea. Somewhere in the region of 50 to 80,000, I imagine.
So it would make a good showing
but
there.
back in the day, you know, you would have had 100,000 people turn up at Wembley because it was all standing, you know, those legendary pictures of, you know, football stadiums in the UK.
Yeah.
They're all just standing, which kind of, you know, post the Hillsborough disaster back in the 80s where people were crushed because too many people were in the stadium.
They
They got rid of that kind of, it all became...
Then again, I feel like I was born into the wrong country. You know, like if I...
Well, no, you would... No, if you
not
wanted
necessarily
to play
with
football,
women's
you were
soccer.
born in the right country.
Would have snuck on the boys' field. Yeah. But just like everybody like celebrates it. It's what you do on the weekends.
Yeah.
Maybe we just have too many sports here.
Well,
not too many sports.
everyone
but more
celebrates
sports.
it in the pub.
Yeah.
Or with a hangover.
Yeah.
It's quite different, you know.
It's a very popular spectator sport. And people play it, obviously. But
yeah.
the watching of football, I think the Brits...
Which I think is interesting, though. Yeah.
Seems to be there.
Well, because if I'm just watching, I don't know. It's hard for me to engage with sports unless I'm like...
Playing it.
Engaged, whether I'm playing or whether I'm coaching. If I'm just watching a game to watch a game, I find myself drifting into like I see myself as the players on the field. And then all of a sudden my hands are sweating and I'm just like, oh my God, yeah. And then I go, oh, you got to make it come back. Just make it back to a soccer field. So, yeah, I actually said, and it helped me move on from soccer. And maybe this is just like more like in general in life. If I'm not like playing the game in some way, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I was the same. I hate watching
football.
football.
To a fault, probably.
I hate watching football.
Do you play? You don't even
No,
play
I don't play anymore. I loved playing football. I hated watching it. I found it so boring and I just wasn't interested in following teams.
Do it.
I was like, I just want to be on the field playing and scoring, you know? It's like watching it was just have no attraction to me whatsoever.
Yeah, that's where I am. And as I say that out loud, I'm like, what's on the other side of that, you know? So limitations.
So did you stop? You stopped?
Speaking of my heart right now, I'm still not over this, I guess. I loved it so much. I wanted to play after college soccer. My senior year was my best year. But I did a thing my sophomore year in college where we didn't have a great first 2 seasons. And I was like, okay, I'm really frustrated. I'm either going to transfer. I'm trying to win like a college championship here, you know, or... what else is there? And I'm like, why don't you run track? Why don't you do indoor track like in the off season? And so I did that. And what I found was like, I loved this like community of weirdos and like mentally, you know, insane people running around a track, muting their pain. Like I loved the community and I fell in love with track and I ran the 800. I'd never run track in high school because it was during soccer season and I was always like not just on high school team but I had my club team, then I had other teams, and so that took away from my ability as a soccer player. You know, I'm like losing weight, leaning out a little bit for this, and then I go back to soccer and you need strength, you need speed and all that and endurance, but you need strength. And then basically it had already worked up where I had fallen in love with this track community so much that I looked forward to, hey, well, when soccer's done, I just go run track. And then I play, you know, spring soccer. And after my final season of soccer, I was like, I don't want this to be over. And in kind of like the not frustration, but maybe confusion of where do I go next, it was like, hey, you have 1 more year of eligibility for NCAA sports. You can do your 4th year of track within 5 years. And so I went into getting my master's in the same subject I have my bachelor's in, communication. And so like in hindsight, I'm like, oh, good. I'm glad you got your graduate degree and all that. And then I was injured at that point in this like final year, 4th year of track, first year of my master's. And so the window to go play pro was like, well, you're in this track body now. You have stress fractures and like both shins, both feet. Had never, knock on wood, why do I say knock on wood? Had never been injured seriously with soccer. Knee issues a lot for girls. Never had that. And it was like, girl, you missed your window, I would have had to kind of give up everything and train specifically for soccer if I wanted to like go play pro then. And so, obviously in hindsight, I look back on all these things and I go, well, you started coaching sooner. I'm so grateful for those reps because the process from player to coach is gnarly. And I wouldn't, again, in hindsight, I wouldn't want it to have been easy. But I remember as a player, everyone's like, oh, you'll be a great coach someday. And I was like, bullshit, I'm going to play, like, no, that's what has-beens say, And then gradually got into, hold on, like, this is a cool opportunity to help set the foundation for other people. And so now the scope of who I'm able to impact through this sport is way beyond myself. And it's not about like being this like, oh, I'm, raising all these like raising the youth. But it was like, this is cool because it's not just one person you're coaching either, especially in a team sport. This isn't personal training. This is group dynamics. Everybody's different. Can you take the best? Can you see the best and kind of marry it, blend it with everybody else? And so to close the loop on this story, at 27, I got invited to play on a summer league semi-pro team, which I had been doing in between my college seasons, all throughout college. You got to play summer ball. And they're like, hey, we're allowed 5 older players on this league.
Thanks.
At this point, I'm like 27, grandma, okay? Jokingly saying grandma, but also like, I'm going to kick your ass because I've been training CrossFit hardcore. I'm still like doing these like obstacle course races. Never had a period of like not being active. And it was like, hey, we could use your leadership on the field. Okay. So now I've been coaching X amount of years leading up to this, 7 years, maybe at this point. I see the game differently. The game slowed down in my eyes. I'm able to like coach players from the field, but also play. Physically, I feel great, better than I've ever felt. And I was like, I swear to God, after one game, I go, that's it. I could like see the headlines. I could see the story, a comeback story. She's going to go pro at 27.
Play a coach.
I'm going to make the next Olympic team. Like, watch me. Or mom and dad, if this doesn't work, I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to play. And then I'll figure out the rest of my life after. But I'm going to play pro. I'm finally going to play pro. Got a really bad concussion. I was always the player, and this is from like 9 years old on, that did more headers on the field than anybody else on my team. It was like not soccer. It was like headbutt ball. If that player's like 6 foot, I'm 5'7", I'm going to jump over you. Head the ball. Loved it. Loved the physical game. Every punt, every goal kick.
Found your head.
Found my head majority of the time. And so like that shit adds up. Okay. So it was not a coincidence where I'm playing in the summer league team. I'm thinking now's your time. Maybe you weren't ready before, but you can do this now. Where it was bad. Like I was in a fog for like 3 months. Really bad. Wow. 6 months.
Purely from heading the ball.
From heading the ball. And I go, why is this? They go, was there one particular header? I'm not even kidding when I say like I felt drunk after soccer games.
Fuck.
And people are, and they're like, Kimmy, that's not good. And I'm like, I feel great right now. I feel great.
People love getting drunk.
Meanwhile, I was waking up, and again, had never experienced this before, but I'm waking up. I'm really sensitive to light. I'm like nauseous. I can't look at my computer. Like this doesn't work for me. And I was like, you need to go to the doctor. So I go to the doctor. They're like, yeah, you need to stop heading the ball. And I was like, really? Like, are you sure? That's part of the game. I remember the doctor said, can you not headbutt the ball? Because you can play if you don't. And I'm like, excuse me, it's a header. It's not a headbutt. And no, that's part of the game. She's like, you know. And so basically I'm like, is there a way to recover, do all this, yada, yada, yada. Long story short, just kidding, you know, long story longer. I went in for this like extensive neurological testing because I was like, screw this. If there's a way to do it, like you need to prove to me that I'm not able to do this anymore. 6 hours of testing later, get stuff back. We're holding a conversation here, so obviously I turned out okay, you know. But CTE came into the discussion, which was like, first of all, I'm ignorant. I should know what that stands for. But I can tell you it's what like former NFL players who end their career go crazy and things end poorly.
So we should just add to that then that over the past decade or so, there's been a massive
and now there's a shift into how we understand headers in soccer.
Yeah, right. And so there's been a massive awareness or massive awakening towards the trauma that that NFL players have been receiving repeatedly from, you know, there was the perception that wearing a helmet would save you from concussion and brain injury, and actually they've realized it hasn't. And so there's been several cases of former NFL players taking their lives because of
I was going to say,
right?
Yes. And so then, you know, again, nothing insane, but like that comes into the conversation and it's like, do you want to be susceptible for that someday? Like, because if you continue on doing what you're doing, you'll last maybe like a season or two. And then what's the rest of your life going to look like? And I don't know if you've met me for 5 seconds, but I love to overthink and analyze everything. Like my brain is a big part of
You've
like.
You've been hit on the head too many times.
For sure. But like, I'm fascinated. I don't want to lose that.
Yeah.
Well, in the UK, very recent past, a player called Alan Shearer was one of England's greatest strikers, did a documentary for the BBC about this exact phenomena.
Well, and we don't wear helmets, and they even have things that go over your head now.
Well, going back also because the footballs were much heavier and they soaked up the water.
Yeah.
And so players were, you know, heading basically like bricks.
For sure.
Repeatedly throughout. And so you've now, there's been several players in the English game that have developed,
like Parkinson's,
neurological
dementia,
brain disease, because of it.
And as much as that hurt, you know, I can speak about it now. Like I got through it, but it took a while. I couldn't coach for a couple months. I was like on like a absence, you know, to heal my brain. That's the other thing. You can't see, if you had a big gash on your leg, you know, you tend to it. You put a Band-Aid on it, you change the, you know, bandages. If something's going on in your head, you don't, like, you can't see that. And so somebody who's like, go, like, I'm fine. No, you're not fine. And you really got to pump the brakes and sit back and heal before you can like be okay again. Otherwise you're just adding to it. And so for me, what it was a series of, you know, probably tens of thousands of multiple traumatic brain injuries, MTBIs, and those things add up. And so, you know, for anybody heading the ball and you think it's just like one hit or whatever the sport is, if you've been doing that your whole life and you've been the player that's like, I'm kind of messed up and I'm going to keep playing. I can remember so many instances. The blessing was it was a definitive stopping point for playing of like, this isn't really a smart option. So cool. Can you go all in on coaching now or other things?
And also,
and I needed that.
Coaching and a master's and bachelor's in communication kind of works.
Not bad, right? Yeah. Well, but that's when I really turned the switch of like, okay, I'm going to go all in on coaching. And I think it was like the next year, the first time, you know, the clubs teams that I was coaching started winning like tournaments. You know, I coached some younger teams as well. And yeah, these kids were like crushing it. And it's not about like crushing it, but it was just this idea of, well, yeah, you can just apply your skill set and your passion for the sport in a different way. And then even, you know, that would extend beyond soccer as the vehicle for this into like, it's coaching and teaching. I don't know what I'm going to be coaching and teaching in 10 years. Might not be ice. I don't know, but it'll be something.
And going all in. I mean, we've only met you a few times, but I would hazard a guess that you are all in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, that's It goes from 0 to all in.
All the strengths and weaknesses because last time you were here, we didn't have the sauna yet. We were just doing ice baths.
We were warming up in front of a heater.
A space heater. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, at night time.
Yeah. Thank God for heated seats when you're driving away.
Yeah. And heated steering wheels.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the link from the coaching to the communications.
Mm-hmm.
Was that always something that you found when you were starting out, when you were little?
I think
Were you controlling and communicating on the field unknowingly well at the time, or was that just your all-in phase?
No, I mean, people would say when I was younger, like, Moss and boss and, Mossy's bossy. And, like, there's always this little, like, not slave driver. That's not really the appropriate word. Well, maybe at certain circumstances it was. But I've always been driven to, like, especially in a game, like, I'm competitive. I want my team to win. And it's not so much, like, putting down other people as much as, like, if you're on my team, we're doing this to be successful. And there's this, like, directness, But later on, taking on more lenses, not just like communication, but even taking the NLP course earlier this year, neuro-linguistic programming of like
mind control.
Yeah, basically I'm trying to take over the world here. No, but can I see how what served me really well in soccer and directness with communicating, how that's sometimes like, it can't be a crossover to how you have like certain personal relationships. Where can you like leverage that directness, and where do you need to soften, and how much softening is like too soft. But to be able to like hold myself accountable in all of these contexts and place that responsibility on myself, at least as best as I can, to like turn the dial up, down, explore the nuances, that's being like extra effective as a communicator. At least that's always my goal. And not in a manipulative way, in like a, oh shit, there's like so many different variables and opportunities anytime we engage. Again, you don't have to be aware of all of them, but are you using the ones that might best serve you? Am I just living in this like soccer, go, compete? Cool, I'll be successful as a player, and like I'll be successful as a coach. Was pretty successful as a coach. That doesn't mean I won all the games, but got to a point where I was like, is that the game I'm playing? Just like win? No, I want to explore more things where it's not necessarily a clear like winner or loser. It's this like exploration. And so that's what's really cool about coaching people through breath work now, ice and heat, is that they're exposed to like new states and sensations in games that it's like not for winning, right? I'm also exposed to like sharing experiences with people in ways that it's not like I won, you lost, but like, oh, what did we just kind of unlock together? What did I just observe here? That's fascinating, and just like player to coach, the scope of everything that I'm able to interact with and maybe impact just opens up. And so this little overactive brain is like, bring it on. Give me all the complexity. Open the floodgates. Sometimes it's like maddening, and other times it's, wow, that's cool. Of course I'm doing this now and not soccer.
You said something where when you were coaching and then you came back into playing, that you could then slow. When you were on the field, you could see the game differently. You could slow it down. You could start to manipulate that. Which, if it's just go of a player, there's a real benefit in understanding the other ways in which things work. Other patterns that you can overlay, so you can be in that. It sounds like the ice. Like you can go in and just hit it hard. Grip. Or you can apply a different pressure or.
And you can enjoy that.
And enjoy it, and slow it down.
And you never, well, I shouldn't say you never, but you're less likely to get bored or burn out of the thing because you have access to all these different ways to interact with it and experience it. And so there it's like, now we can begin. that being said, it's been interesting with breath and exposure because initially I really was like, I want people to have the full experience. You know, you guys were going to do the complete human experience, like the full thing. I want you to understand that this is like more than the ice. This is like more than the heat, yada, yada, yada. Putting this like overinflated ideal expectation of how other people were going to interact with and perceive this thing. And so now, and this is just like where a lot of my growth has come and is still coming, of can I let people meet it in their way? It's not levels. It's just they view the world from their, lens, or their map of the world, as NLP would say. Great. And then can I encourage them or guide them to expand that?
Yeah. I think the ice is a real metaphor for whatever that person wants to define as the metaphor. Like for everyone, it's cold, it's wet.
Right.
It might be comfortable depending on who you are, but it's so neutral. It's just as cold and wet in there. And like, knock yourself out.
It doesn't need to have a negative connotation either.
Yeah.
Just like sunny day, rainy day. Both are days.
Yeah.
Is one better than the other?
Rainy day in an ice bath outside is actually really nice.
So nice.
It's like rainy day in the sea.
Yeah.
And
you're like a badass if you do that. And then I think, do I enjoy it more because I feel like I'm a badass, or because like there's something really primal about like the sky just opened up and I'm in cold water? And I think it's a bit of both, for being honest here. I'm not that, stripped of my ego that I don't think it's a little fun to be like, nobody else is doing it. So let's go. Yeah. Yeah. And I also think, as much as, again, like earlier with breath and exposure, I'm like, it's about the ice. There's these protocols, and also it's not about the ice, and I would go, the ice bath is your life. Like, what are you not stepping into? Okay. That sounds great on paper, Kimmy, but like, you don't need to push that onto people. Let them figure that out on their own as they want to. And it's the moment somebody goes like, my shower was like not getting hot the other day and it wasn't a big deal. Or, I just thought of like, I go on the ice 3 times a week, first thing in the morning. And, so I just went ahead and talked to my boss and like had that difficult conversation, because it was just like stepping in the ice. And I'm like, yeah, that's the crossover. That's the skill transfer we're looking for here. And like I was talking to you guys this morning, in a world where we have the tools and this, the bandwidth to reach out whatever it is that we're doing and whatever lesson we acquire from that to the whole world. It is also nice to just like share time together, share connection, experiences. And like, we don't have to describe it or explain it or make a deal out of it. So something like heat and ice in the morning with breath work is like, there's nothing to brag about. It's just like intuitively, subjectively, you feel good. And we can just like, not even in a flaunting it way, like, hey, I ice and heat, 3 times in the morning and do this breath work to start my day. It's just like, yeah, that's what I do. Just like I brush my teeth and I try to eat well and I hydrate. And now, as we're doing these extreme things, it becomes, your conversation in the sauna is on anything and everything. Yeah. It's not just about like, hey, how long have you been in the ice? How cold is the ice?
Yeah. Well,
how many cycles did you do?
Reminds me of when I was running a lot. The best part about running and being in the mountains was actually sitting in the car at the end and not really saying anything to the person I'd been running with, who just sitting in the back, just like humming.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah, cool.
Like that feels good too. And I think that ice and heat is a cool thing for people to do together. Cool opportunity to like get into feelings and states like that.
Well, when you've done other things, it feels like it's a step on. You said something today about shivering, and I think, like the ice bath, it's like stepping. What are you not stepping into in your life? All of that stuff.
Right.
You said about shivering, that shivering is perceived as this huge vulnerability, and it's like, oh, you cold and this, and it's actually shivering's really good. Like being vulnerable is really good to a point.
Right.
Like know when you're like, I'm hypothermic now.
Right.
I'll get out.
Well, that's like I was at the Power Speed Endurance Art of Breath seminar. I've gone to it 2 times now, and they were just recently in Santa Monica. And I went, and of course, like Brian's there, and I'm showing off. Okay, we're doing hypoxic kettlebell carries, and I went a little too far. My lips,
my favorite.
My lips turned blue.
No.
And meanwhile, I'm thinking like, hey, you crushed everybody. You know, you like went further, 2 lengths further. And he said right after, he's like, Kimmy, there's a difference between an ice bath and hypothermia. He's like, same thing here. At some point, there's like diminishing returns, right? And so I think it's like having a hold of that. What are you like doing this for? Not to say that it doesn't matter how cold it is or how long you go in. You got to kind of be like, you know, fluent enough to be getting hopefully a positive stimulus from it. Yeah. And that's constantly varied as well. So as soon as people get married to like, it has to be 3 minutes. It has to be like 33 to 36 degrees. I'm like, okay.
The hardest cold I'd ever done was a bath at home. I was like, I'm going to see what it's like for half an hour just sitting in my home bath.
Yeah.
Just run it. It was the most uncomfortable thing. I got out after 12 minutes. I was like, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't quite cold enough that
you could like numb yourself.
Yeah. It was like, oh, my bath is too small.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's like 15 degrees. And I was like.
Right. Meanwhile, you're sitting in like a 30 degree tub and you're like, oh, yeah, easy day. I'm going to move the ice right now, make it harder. And so, yeah, I think it's a cool thing to give people the chance to reflect and then come back differently.
It's
good, bad, and different.
It's allowing the space, isn't it? You provide the environment, but part of providing the environment is allowing the space for that person to get what it is that they need and trusting to them and their process. I love the fact that I've got trusted process in.
It's another reference to Logan Gelbrick there.
And you know, and trusting that they will get out of it what they need to get out of it.
Yeah.
And it might never progress beyond, I just like coming on a Wednesday morning and doing it.
Yeah. For sure.
And it might be the next week, this has been the most profound experience or profound insight of my life, but it's theirs.
Right.
And it's there, you know, you've just created the environment and the support structure.
It's also forced me to level up as a coach.
And
now in terms of how I try to spread, B&E coaching, whatever that looks like, which is now like breath and exposure has popped up in other places called breath and exposure. It has never happened before. So we're onto something here.
Yeah.
Hey, it's cool to push people to like be your best self and like lift a little heavier, do the workout faster. None of that is like meaningless or irrelevant. But there's this other like skill set that is allowing people to experience how they do and not taking it as a personal thing to your ego that I didn't unlock a level. Like, who's that about?
It's such a tremendous waste of energy to want something more for someone than they want it for themselves.
Right. Yeah. And so just like to be patient and open about it, that you're not less of a coach. In fact, you maybe offer a wider, menu. Is there a difference then?
You can't want it more for someone than they want it themselves. Where is the fine line between seeing someone that could be doing so much more, but they're just being nonchalant or lazy for the sake of being nonchalant and lazy, and that actually a push in the right direction for them would be extremely beneficial for them.
For sure.
Not because you want it more for them, but because you can see or identify within them that
they've got more to give.
Yeah. Okay, that's a really great question. I love that.
Thanks.
I don't have. He's like, crushed it. Check that box too. I don't have a clear answer, but I'm going to tell you what my experience, like what my gauge is, and it's eye contact.
Oh, because you're calling them out without actually calling them out.
So I even say like my preferred language, miss like. Talk till you kill everybody around you, like talk. I play with words all day. But again, I just enjoy that. Is eye contact, I think, is the most profound language when it comes to coaching this thing. And what I mean by that is And I was actually just talking about this the other day of, when you're tired and you walk into, whether it's your workspace or home, and you're almost like avoiding eye contact because you're fatigued. And so you're reluctant to like engage with others, because if you do engage, they might be able to see that like you're fatigued and you're not at your best. And I don't know about you, but this is just something that I kind of battle sometimes. Is I feel like the driven competitive side in me always wants to be, if Kimmy can operate at battery levels, I want to be at that 100%. I want to be that 10 out of 10. And does that mean I don't show up when I'm feeling at a 6? Like, no, you still show up, you do your thing. And so with eye contact, it's interesting when people don't want to make eye contact. And how if you'll just be willing, just like surrender to the extreme cold at first in the ice, if you're just willing to like, be vulnerable, open your eyes, connect just for a second, trust my eyes, I can usually take people 5 more breaths, 10 more breaths. And it's like, do you have trust and willingness that you're just like, give me your eyes? Like that simple. And so when it's like, how do you know if someone's like not willing to go there? Well, they might be reluctant to make eye contact. And so that's one thing right there. And then I have this move, like I get down if the tub's right there, and I was like, hold on.
The coach Neil.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't even realize it until after the fact. And it's like intense and it's intimate.
And for everyone watching, they're like, oh, this is happening.
They're
as
like,
soon as you kneel, they're like, oh, this is
like,
level.
They're
Next
like,
level.
this is her move. Just like when I was coaching, I get excited.
Neil's coming. The Neil's coming.
Or somebody's like,
Huddle in.
oh shit, not again. Come on, Kimmy. Right? But it's like, it's not even manipulative. It's just this fluid, like down, I'm going to meet you at eye level.
We have a teacher, an Ashtanga. James and I practice Ashtanga. James a bit more than I. We have a teacher called Santina who we've podcasted with, and a bit like Logan, we kind of reference a lot. And I can't remember whether it was when I was hanging out with her in Budapest on my own or not. I was asking her about the importance of a teacher, and she was saying with her, it's about being able to hold the space and realize all the shit that the student is giving you isn't about you. And so thus you don't react to the student. You basically stand there and accept all the shit that they're giving you, because eventually it comes back to the student, and then they realize it's about themselves. So you don't get caught up in the story and the student's game and end up reacting and making an ass of yourself.
Well, and as a coach, it's like that's like almost you could look at it as like a fitness level, right? You build yourself up to like, oh, we're past me reacting to your, coach high school girls soccer. You gotta put up that tough coat of like, no, I'm talking about this boy. I'm talking about prom. I'm talking, and I'm like, hey, I need you to make this run in front of the back line, instead of like you're looking for the ball over the top. It's very specific, technical, whatever. So in the ice, instead of like, I'm so cold, my feet hurt. Hey, can you take 3 breaths where you inhale, pause for 2 seconds, exhale out your mouth, and I'll like demo and I'll stay with them. And then all of a sudden, that's the tool. That's the technical thing. Instead of saying it's all about mindset. It's all about attitude. You're having a celestial experience. I love to drop that one because I have heard that before. You kidding me? If you told me that in the ice the first time, I'd be like, excuse me? I would get out.
Just get my sage.
Yeah. Like, hold on. Let me just pray to the gods here. But I think it's really cool if that's my gauge, limited in however I can interact with it. That's always changing. So it's interesting to me. And I can see based on eye contact and even with breath of, again, I'm not looking for someone to like lock eyes with me, in this like very intense thing. I'm just looking for moments where like, are you willing to dissociate from all that and trust for a second? Because then you're going to have this experience for you, and then get them to come to the point where they can self-regulate. Because just like almost your teacher was saying, it's holding space and it's owning your responsibility to provide a presence. There's a reason why when you're being watched, good, bad, worse, whatever, okay, that you interact with that situation differently than if you're not being watched. We're not like inherently good, evil for being like, oh, you're observing me right now, so I'm going to care a little bit more. Like, isn't this the whole point? It's like connection. And I'm not saying you have to feed into that ultimately. Like, you want to be inherently driven to do the things that you want to do without these outside influences. But also, when someone is still learning and growing and is in a moment of weakness and about to quit, I'm going to show my presence for a second. And if they're willing to interact with it, again, I'm talking moments here. It doesn't have to be 3 minutes. Cool. We just had an opportunity to grow together. And then, this student or athlete or whatever gets to the point where I'm not there next time. Okay. Or it's not even about having somebody there to like externally focus on, but I have this skill set in myself. It is just breath. She was reminding me. And then it becomes less about like this guru over here who's like, I'm going to take you through an experience, and more about, no, I just gave you the training wheels for your first go or two. And now you're doing this thing so nonchalant that we can build from there, have great conversations in the sauna, spend our morning connecting with one another, as opposed to talking about, I really got through adversity this morning. Like, I'm sorry, I'm past that conversation. It can be part of it, but that's not going to be the only thing.
Yeah. That seems to be a big shift that's happening. And there was an Instagram post that I wrote last night, which was taking a quote from Mark and Michael saying...
Is it from Mark and Michael or was it from Erin? I wasn't
sure.
No,
it was Mark and... It was said at the non-profit symposium, and Erin posted it. It was, conversation can change the way we think. The dialogue we foster often builds the foundation for the way we see the world. And that was in reference to their gym space and what they're doing. And I was like, it's more about having a dialogue and a conversation.
Yeah. And it, not to like say the cliche, it takes two to tango, but
it does.
Is the other person willing to do it with you?
Yeah.
And if they are, what can you create from there? Cool. If not, you're limited.
And I would also say, if they're not willing, then that's cool. And
Totally.
you kind of just like, okay, no probs. You like both parties move on.
Yes.
Rather than becoming like a big dilemma of like, fuck's sake, why aren't you doing this? It's like, cool. You just that's just where you're at.
Well, I remember telling Logan after one of the seminars, it was like,
was that the one where he wouldn't get in the ice? He just hated it.
Yeah, definitely. No, but I think it was after like the third or fourth seminar, and I was like, took an L today. It's like, what? Like, somebody didn't make it 3 minutes in the ice. I was like, I had a perfect track record until, and it's like, hold on,
DNF'd the
right?
ice.
And this is where,
the ice.
they went in 90 seconds instead of 3 minutes. And this was like a great opportunity for me. Again, like we all need people to help guide us, teach us of like, is that really a loss? Like I don't have to be so tied to how other people experience this thing. So as they're experiencing it and all that entails, I'm also growing as well to hold more space for you can interact with this however you want. And again, I am in this role where I'm teaching, guiding, doing whatever. How I react to that situation of the DNF, okay, the 90 seconds in the tub instead of 3 minutes or even 30 seconds is not like, oh, well, it's okay. You'll do way more next time,
4.5 minutes next time.
Right. Or like, oh, you could, I know you have more in you. It's kind of like saying as simple as, okay, cool. Next person in. This neutral, it's an acknowledgement. It's not a praise or a, criticism. And so that for me, just as an individual, has been a lot of, space for growth, and what I feel really good about now when I can navigate a situation like that. The DNF happens and it's like, okay. And then they don't feel bad about it. I don't feel bad about it. On to the next. Like, let's not ruminate in it. I'm speaking this in retrospect, right? Because these are all lessons that I'm grateful to have gone through.
We've had experiences like that when people say,
sorry, go on.
How long did you stay in? Like, how long did you do? And then you're like, I'm just getting out. Like, thanks.
Yeah.
Like it's a metric and a competition again. And you're like,
And I almost liken it to, it's a little bit of small talk, right? When like maybe there's like silence and people want to break the silence. It's like, oh, it's great weather today, you know, or like, oh, what do you think of the sports team or something? Well, people just don't have access to this larger, you know, awareness of what the ice can bring. And so it very much is, again, it's not necessarily a function of like ignorance or anything like that. It's just like, how long were you in and how cold was it is kind of like the common vernacular that's like, you know, culturally most popular right now. And so how can we expand everybody gently so that we're all level?
And I guess the what pops to my mind is the individuals that need that have some more lessons to learn.
Yeah.
Like, because that's a comparative mindset. Like,
yeah.
It's a competitive mindset, not comparative.
Yes. And
or
again,
both.
this goes back to the expansion of, can I get even someone who's super competitive? And I don't hope to mute that, but can I get them to observe the ice from like see it as there's other opportunities other than winning and losing. X amount of time, X amount of ice.
Potentially missing the gold.
Yeah.
Because at times, yeah, it's, you know, for whatever reason, whatever you're going through, maybe the time metric is what you need that day, you know, some kind of like tough love of something cool. I'm not tough love, but just like, that's what you need. Like a need to grind out 5 minutes for whatever reason.
Right.
But to go into the ice every time with that mindset, you know, you're missing the gold. And,
right.
And you know, on the opposite side of the spectrum, to go in every time to the ice with like, where's the mystical moment?
Yes.
You know, where's the insight? Is also missing the point.
100%. And so this is where I'm glad you brought that up of like, you know, speaking of like a flow addict over here, at one point I was icing every morning. When we got that ice machine, you better believe I was like, rain or shine in that thing.
Where's Kimmy? She's in the ice bucket.
Right. Oh, there she is again, you know, like squawking around like a bird after getting out and all excited and all that. And I was noticing the mornings that I wasn't doing ice first thing, you know, or right after a workout, I didn't feel as like awake and alive and even mood subjectively, like just didn't feel as good. And of course, my first reaction was like, well, you just need to ice every day now. You need to make sure you're icing on those days. And then it was like, no. We have a problem here.
It's a crutch.
So, yes. And can I, in this whole game of like, are we more adaptable for all these different scenarios? Ice has now become like an addiction, not a tool that I can use whenever I want instead of like, you know, it's creeping in. You need to ice.
Do you feel you need to go through that?
But I'm glad I went through that.
Because then you start to see it. Because tools, until it becomes, you know, unconscious.
For sure.
You know, and
I appreciate it more now.
Even.
And I feel like it's that way with everything. So as much as, you know, you want to caution someone to like, don't be addicted to the ice or like, don't do it every day. You know, people get excited about it. It could, you know, replace ice and heat with the gym, with, you know, food, with whatever. They kind of got to crash and burn on their own.
Yeah. They're not, though, maybe they're not end points. It's like you're going to go through it because, well, you'll either shy
like the
away
pendulum.
from it.
You're going to swing.
Yeah.
You know, so hit the edge and then you're going to swing back.
Yeah.
And then even when you were saying, you know, some days maybe you do have to grind through it. You do need to do the 3 minutes or the 5 minutes or whatever. It's like not every day has to be this like, I just had this massive epiphany. It's like, hey, you're just going to do 3 minutes today. Just like you're just going to brush your teeth because that's good for you.
Yeah.
You're going to, you know, hydrate because that's good for you. And with that lends itself to you can and you should, and I hope you experience a lot of flow, but I also hope you appreciate all the little moments and the little ordinary things that happen. You know, so maybe it's a morning where you're not feeling super hot and you go in the ice and you don't feel that, you know, like extra vibe or whatever that is. It's, you know, can you take a moment to go, oh, this is really cool. There's like 9 other people around me and we're all spending the morning together. Like, that's awesome.
I thought it was lovely today, actually, when we were in the sauna, the 5 of us in the sauna, just having a really nice conversation. And, you know, we were there kind of in the heat, and that was the point, being in the heat. But actually having a really nice conversation, 5 people for 15 minutes. Right. And then one by one, everyone was getting out to get into the sauna. And, you know, nowhere else would we have probably connected as a group of 5 people where we understood like, you know, what each person did or what their day was going to be like, or, you know, the nuances of holiday time in the UK versus the US, or where you could go and ski and surf in the same day. These conversations are actually are so joyous because they don't have like some grand meaning to them.
Right.
It's like where this it feels like where a really nice connection is made.
Right.
So next time that we come and we see those see the three ladies that were there with us today in the gym, it's like, hey, you know.
Right.
And it's that was really nice.
So nice.
And that wasn't the purpose. Like, strictly speaking, that wasn't the purpose.
For sure.
But actually, do I remember the sauna? Not really. Do I remember the really nice conversation? Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I think it's cool to see how people in this program, you know, keep coming back. There isn't this like massive rate of attrition. It's like this little community that we're growing. And I think most of those people would say they know if they just show up, they'll probably have a pleasant morning. They don't know like the formula for that to happen, but they know that they're all there to share a good experience, whatever good is, together instead of alone.
Yeah, I think that's the part. It's the togetherness.
Yeah. It's like, it's an excuse to bring people together.
Yeah. And it's actually I find it quite sad that we need reasons to bring people together. And you're like, oh.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. It's so easy to articulate and label what is connection, what is friendship, identifying, just like the graduate student that's critical of everything. What is it that we need more of? Okay, but sometimes, you know, the most fulfilling or maybe productive things to get us closer to these things that we really want, this like human connection, is to just ask, like, hey, do you want to go walk? Do you want to go grab lunch? Do you want to get some coffee? Like, it doesn't have to be this grand event. It's just like, do you want to do stuff with me? And being willing to invite people, not on a pedestal. Just naturally. Why is it that we're scared to do that? And I'm not saying everybody's scared to do that, but I observe this culture thing where we're almost like overhyping, overflexing, and we don't need to.
I think everyone's out of practice. And the reason I say that is because 30 years ago, your time wasn't being competed for by a myriad of other activities or other things going on in social life. Or you know, it's like you had your neighbor. Maybe this is a very English thing, but you had your neighbor and you went next door for a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Just to connect. I have a personal theory of, you know, lots of anxiety and depression on the rise the world over, particularly in London where I live. I know no one in like a square mile of where I live. And that's so bizarre compared to like a generation ago of my parents, where they would have known everyone. And so you would have constantly been connecting with someone, you know, whether it's on the street, a hello as someone was pulling out their driveway,
right? Or
whether you were going next door for a cup of tea or to someone else's, or your kids were out playing with someone else's kids. So you had constant contact. So you had constant communication going. So these things that you need to kind of just express and get out,
right?
These minute things were constantly in flow. Like things were allowed to come in and they're allowed to go out. Now they come in and there is no outlet, because you don't have that daily communication or daily contact with someone. And so, you know, 20 years ago, there was nothing to compete for someone's time, or 30 years ago, however long, there wasn't anything to compete for someone's time. And now there's so much to compete for people's time. They just don't have enough time to do these things. Or, you know, it's kind of weird to knock on your neighbor's, you know,
right.
You know, that classic.
But again, going back to that pendulum, I think we are all observing that we've kind of hit that point extreme, where it's like something needs to shift here, and that we don't have to go back to prehistoric times or eliminate social media, but maybe through experiences like sauna and ice, you know, or more dinners together or coffee together or whatever, that we can start to like value and appreciate that time of being together and how that feeds you, so that it's not like you're looking to, go gallivant in the mountains or the ocean or wherever, or be at a coffee shop for 6 hours a day. Like, no, but little dosages of it, like an hour, 2 hours. Cool. Now, how effective are you with getting on with the rest of your day? Yeah. That a little goes a long way. And it's one of those things where, we all know you got to experience something to really interact with it, reflect on it. Cool. More experience together. That's all I'm trying to do.
That's awesome.
I'm just going to write something down. Keep going while it's in my head.
Well, with Logan, we're setting up a new club. It's kind of like the once a year club. It's called the Pizza and Sushi Club.
That's a great club.
We've already, we haven't logged into the diary yet though, Logan. We're gonna log it in. Maybe tonight. Best of both worlds. If you want to come to our new club, the Pizza and Sushi Club.
That's a great club.
It's once a year.
Yeah. It's an annual membership.
It's pretty pricey. Yeah. Oh. But yeah, it is that simple, And I think with all of this is like, keep learning, growing, moving on to the next thing. Never settled, but at the end of the day, like, there's time to be independent and work towards whatever it is you need to or want to work for on yourself. But at least to me, it always felt like there's an emptiness when I don't have community. And there's a strength and unpredictable, like composure that I mean to say, like, I don't know what we're going to say, right, when we get together. I don't know what that's going to look like. But I have enough reps now that I know, like, I'll be reassured when I know that other people are in the room. And they're showing up because they want to be there. And I can still be the high voltage competitive player, but that, like, this for me is an essential component of health that I overlooked for a while. I would be like, no, I can't, like, go out and do this. Like, I got a game tomorrow, or like, I got to prepare for this. And all of a sudden life hits you and you're like, dude, it's been like a decade of saying no to all these things that now when you've opened it back in, you go, oh, that's like when I'm happiest. And if I'm in this like world of health and fitness, I better be advocating for that.
Yeah.
You said, don't settle, keep moving. When does a rest turn into settling for something?
Ooh, that's good. Well, again, like I only... In my mind.
Because rest seems to be the thing that no one really talks about. This rest and recovery and reflection, the 3 R's.
Yeah.
It's like, don't talk about your feelings, don't stop, keep moving, never settle, one more rep, just do it. All of that. It's
right.
And really we become better in that rest, reflection.
For sure. And I'm still like...
But then you can start navel gazing, which becomes the settling. And you're
for
like,
sure.
Oh yeah, I'm just reflecting today.
Right. And it's like, come
3
on,
years
you're
later.
being lazy. Yeah. So I think there's this like conscious competence for, at least in my experience, of I have to remind myself. And sometimes it's like, this is 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Been doing some stuff earlier in the day, buzz, did a training session, yada, yada. Kimmy, you're going to take the next hour to just relax. If you sleep during that hour, like, great. If you're just like laying down, great. Put your phone away. You're not on the computer. Sometimes I'll write for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, what comes out. I got to tell you, that has been huge for me, because then when I go enter, it's just like with the ice and the heat, and we talk about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. But I'm still in this conscious competence phase of I have to structure in this rest time, because it's not a muscle I'm used to flexing. But I notice, like, wow, when I am on and do whatever I feel compelled to do or what I need to do, I'm more effective with that.
Yeah, you're on.
Than when I grind. I think part of that comes with maturity, of like growing up. I'm not there, but I'll be better at that. But I also think there is this moment of, for anybody who's been so driven to accomplish a goal, and then you do the goal and all of a sudden you go, oh shit, like what is life? Like what am I doing now? to accept that there's this space of exploration as well.
Yeah.
For me, this was driving across the country. This was planning myself at Deuce. Like, oh, okay. There were several months of, I'm kind of floating, you know, I'm just like observing the ocean and thinking about it. But when you allow that space, things start to creep in, seeds start to get planted. And I think the moment you go, am I being like, you know, taking advantage of this rest, is when you're aware of that like visceral pull inside that's like calling you to do something. And maybe it's just unease and it's angst, or maybe it's rage, but you feel and you don't act on it. Then you're sending yourself into not just like, okay, well now it's not rest, it's laziness. Okay, but also maybe you're setting yourself up for, you know, mentally, that's going to affect your health. Physically, that's going to affect your health. That's going to limit your view of the world because you're going to shut in instead of like, just take a step in that direction that you feel pulled to do. Maybe I'm a feeler, but I, even recently, you know, I finally am like telling all my friends now, telling people, yeah, I'm writing a playbook. I'm writing a guideline for B&E that I can, you know, offer to other gyms that want to start a similar program and culture at their gyms. Like, that thing needs to be birthed out of me now. I'm pregnant with it. Also, I'm expecting twins because, again, didn't plan on this. This just like came out of me.
Yeah.
And I have this deadline of like, by the end of this year, you need to have drafted both of those. And then you'll figure out aesthetics and what it looks like and manufacturing from there. But a communication course, an online course where there will be a curriculum, you know, 10 to 12 week curriculum, and people can access that. And that's, you know, this like rhetoric and motion thing that I did with Carl at the Freestyle Insider. And that has grown and just lent from what were my passions and what was I doing before, but now as my own expression of it versus like for a club or an organization, an institution. And so that's not a super clear answer, but I think it's this very like visceral feel. You feel it in you, and it's on you to bring it to life.
I'm to add my opinion to that, I of all the different modalities that we are being introduced to or learning about, for me it's all about the restful ones, because it's, you know, creativity can only come from a state of non-stress.
Right.
You know, when you're stressed, it's like, you know, you're in survival mode, so it's like as simple as your digestion stops working when you're in survival mode. So so how can you come up with anything creative or not worthwhile, but anything that's going to progress you, because you're physiologically not able to go deeper into the recesses of your being to let those things come up.
And how can we leverage what we know now physiologically?
Yeah.
You know, just maybe it's cold shock, heat shock proteins.
Yeah.
Maybe it's understanding, you know, neurochemistry better, whatever. How can we leverage that to put ourselves in better situations where it's not just, you know, you got to be focused, or you got to be mentally strong, but like, are you in an environment that supports that? Are you like physically giving yourself the best opportunity to go there? And don't be a diva about it on the other side of that of like, well, I haven't had my 3 cups of coffee made by this perfect thing, and I haven't done my sun salutations, and I haven't, okay, come on. But like, you know, do that minimal dosage responsibility to put yourself in the environment, and then take action.
Yeah. Well, it's our own responsibility. You know, if we need to wake up at 6, just do it, but don't tell people that we do. Yeah. And if we don't, moan about it.
And having, I will say, having a community of people here, especially at Deuce, like the friends that I have in my life now and in the last year, of like, we call each other out on this shit. You know, so if I'm like describing the experience of all of this, which everybody drifts into a little bit of reflection.
Kimmy, pick up the bar.
Right. Of like, you know, I remember when Juan said one day, I'm like, oh my God, I'm just like trying to build this program for like B&E. And he's like, Kimmy, you can still work out. You know, like it's an hour. Let's go. Like, don't put that on the side. And I just remember coming back to him later that day of like, thank you for that. You know, it was the moment where like I was only training 3 times a week, and it sounds like, Have you met me? I need to train 6 times a week. I do. That doesn't have to be intense. I should say I need to move. I need to move daily, and I need to move of like a certain level of exertion. Again, doesn't have to be more weight, whatever, but certain amount of, increased forcefulness of my respiration, whatever. That needs to happen. It's like an animal. You ever see a dog get cooped up? It's not good for anybody. Yeah. Same. Yeah. And I do liken myself to that. And so what I mean to say is I appreciate, and how are we setting ourselves up for success to like rest more, connect more, spend all this time together, is enough people who are aware of like, we got a lot of plates that we need to spin and juggle. And your likeliness for success, in my experience, to balance all of it as best you can, goes up significantly when you have a network of people who are all like, I know it's hard, I know it's a lot, but just do that one thing. Just like you're in the ice, you're panicking, there's somebody across from you, you're not alone. You will tap into a strength that you didn't have if you were by yourself. And if you are by yourself and you are a masochist, that's cool, but I've also played that game too, and it's pretty lonely.
Yeah. Good spot.
Yeah, good spot. Thanks for your time, Kimmy.
Thank you.
How do people find you? Find you.
Come to Deuce Gym. No. They can find me on the internet. My Instagram.
That's brilliant. Find me on the internet.
Google my name. No, I love to.
If you come to the States, I'm around.
Yeah. Yeah, I love to meet people in person. But I also love how many people have reached out that I had never met before, who were like, oh, I see your stuff. I have a consult with a girl in Toronto later this afternoon who's like, hey, I saw your stuff. I'd love to learn more about breath and exposure. Cool. I talked to somebody in New Zealand a couple of weeks ago.
Great.
So yeah, my Instagram.
So that's Kimmy.Moss. And do you have Rhetoric Emotion still?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's
Rhetoric Emotion.
Okay, great. Cool. And then, so where are people going to be able to find these courses?
There's a website that's coming where it'll just kind of like a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
And whether it's
Kimmy's Rhetoric Emotion,
coaching at Deuce, or breath and exposure, literature, not literature, but like, what's the playbook?
Yeah.
If they want to set up breath and exposure at their gym or have me come out and do that, this is what that looks like. And if you want to become a better communicator, or maybe more aware of how you can become a better communicator, Rhetoric Emotion, there will be a online communication course.
Is that the URL? Is that to come?
It'll be breathandexposure.com.
Got you.
That's crazy that I just said that, but yeah, I got
Boom,
the domain.
Committed you to it.
Yeah. That's all.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
When are we doing the ice again?
What's that?
When are we doing the ice again?
Friday.
Friday morning.
Let's do it.
Great.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.